Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this training video series. I am Daniel Nangelo. In this particular training video series, which is basically a continuation of a very long list of training video series, we are going to be discussing and demonstrating how to calculate food security and nutrition indicators at household levels. And hang on and let us learn something new. Now, for those people who work in the humanitarian world, for those people or those specialists and experts who work with the data that concerns food, agriculture, climate change, they're usually an aspect of trying to find out what is the level or what is the current food security at each country level or any other lower administrative units. And when we talk about food security, there are a number of indicators that will give us or will point us to know whether we are food secure or not. So, for this particular training video, I'll be looking at the following food security indicators. The first one is the food consumption score, which is usually abbreviated as FCS. Then we also have the coping strategy index, which is usually abbreviated as CSI. Then lastly, we have the household hunger scale, which is usually abbreviated as HHS. Now, the calculation for all this is usually takes the same approach. Now, for this particular training video series, I'll be demonstrating and showing you how to calculate the first indicator of food security, that is a food consumption score, using Excel. Then later in my next video, I'll be showing you how to do the same using SPSS. So, hang on and let us learn something new. Now, when we talk about the food consumption score, we usually experts usually ask a series of questions that will provide us with the data that we need to compute this food consumption score. Now, we usually have, and this data, for those who are wondering where I'm getting all this information, this is data that or information that I've gotten from WFP and FAO. Now, we usually have a standard day food frequency data that we usually are interested in understanding at household levels. Now, this series of questions, we usually, after we've asked this series of questions, we usually group all these questions into food items, into 9 specific food groups. Now, these are the questions that we usually ask. We usually ask questions about the food items. And the first group usually ask questions about, for the last 7 days, for how many days did you or a member of your household consume maize porridge, rice, sorghum, millet, pasta, bread, or other cereals? All these questions, you can decide to split this into into a number of questions that as it might fit your situation or phenomenon. They also have cassava, potatoes, and sweet potatoes, and other tubers and plantains. This series of questions usually group it into a food group known as the main staples. And for this particular food group, we usually assign it a definitive weight of 2. Now, these standard 7-day questions on food eaten are usually grouped into 9. You can see that the second group, it talks about how for the last 7 days, for how many days did you or a member of your family consume beans, peas, groundnuts, and cashew nuts. These questions usually assign it or group it into the pulses food group, and we assign it a weight of 3. We have also vegetable, leaves, and leaves. This we assign it into the vegetable food group. Then we have fruits. Under here, you can still talk about vitamin C and vitamin A fruits. We assign it to the fruit food group, and we give it the definitive weight of 1. Beef, goat, poultry, pork, eggs, and fish. We usually group it into the meat and fish food group, and it's assigned, this is the highest definitive weight at 4. Then we also have the 6th group, which is milk, yogurt, and other dairy, which we usually assign it to the milk or the dairy product food group, which is also we assign a definitive weight of 4. Sugar and sugar products like honey, we assign it the sugar food group, and it has a definitive weight of 0.5. The 8th group asks questions about food items about oils, fats, and butter. We assign it to the oil food group, and it comes with a definitive weight of 0.5. Then the last and then the 9th and the last group usually ask questions about spices, tea, coffee, salt, fish powder, small amounts of milk for tea. These ones we group it into the condiments food group, and it usually has a definitive weight of 0. And the reason why we assign it a definitive weight of 0 is because you can do without this, but it's always good to just ask, because there are a number of questions that you can still want. This particular question can still give a shed on light on the nature and the pattern of food consumption at household level. So let us advance forward. Now I have a data set here that is basically an endline survey that was assessing food security and livelihoods at household levels in a particular geographic area. And these are the questions that we've been asking. So you can see here that we have how many days in the last 7 days did you or a member of your household eat cereals, root tubers such as maize, sorghum, millet, cassava, yams, etc. You can see like that. That basically falls under the first food group, that is staples. Then we have legumes. For how many days did your member for the last 7 days did a member or you eat legumes such as beans, cowpeas, peanuts, and lentils? So you can see that this is a series of all the food groups that we are interested in. And for this particular data, it has been done nicely because they have tried, whoever designed this tried to group this into 9 specific food groups. So this is the data that we require here. So I'm just going to highlight this array with okay, let me use orange. So this is the data that we are concerned with. Now before we start analyzing, I'll recommend that you watch my previous training video on data management, and specifically the one that we talked about doing data cleaning and pre-processing before analysis. Now, if you look, for those who have already watched that video, we need to do some data cleaning here. Although the data is already clean, but we need to prepare it into a way that is good, that is ready for analysis. Now, by default, we had said that if we are going to perform mathematical operations on your data set, then you need to convert that array of data into numeric values. Now, if you look at here, this data, this column here, this data is numeric data but that has been stored as text. Why? Is because that by default, statistical packages will always format numeric values, data stored as numeric values they are going to be right aligned. If you look at our data, it is left aligned. Now, this tells us that this data, we cannot perform any mathematical operations. And the reason being, if we just quickly just maybe do a quick function here for sum, and we try and sum this, right? Notice it's going to give you 0 because it has not calculated anything, right? It should be something like 1 plus 3, that is 4, plus 7, that is plus 3, that is 7, plus 5, that should be 12, plus this, that should be 15, 19, it should be 24, and it should be 28, 32, right? So that should be the correct value that should have been returned here. But because our data is not formatted as numbers, then these sums, these mathematical operations, were not successful. So an easier way, especially if you are working with huge data, big data, is easier to just, this should be EG, right? So I'm just going to, so what you need to do is to, let me just cancel this. So is to select the whole array of data, copy it, and open an empty notepad. For those who do not know how to open notepad, you can just go to search here and type notepad, right? Notepad is there, the notepad application, so launch it and paste your data here. After you've done this, you can copy it again from now notepad, Control C, and let me just open a blank worksheet here and just paste it there, right? Now that was EG, right? So let me just say okay, let me just navigate it to EG. Now here is my data. Now notice that it has now right aligned. Now these one are now, we can now perform mathematical operations on this. So let me just rename this. Let me just call it I'll call it perhaps FSL. It should be FSL end line. Good. Now I'm just going to highlight this so that because my data, this data is a data set that has a lot of things, I'm just going to quickly highlight it like that. Now we have this other series of questions that has to do with the household hunger scale and all that, but for now we are going to progress into this in our next training video. So for now I want us to look at this. Now the next item that we need to do, right, is to now assign this into food groups. Now I've said that my data is very clean, that whoever designed this data collection tool was very considerate, and I think they were looking at how we are going to analyze it and make it an easy process. So we have these very long questions here. So I'm going to just quickly assign this into food groups. So I'll rename this to main staples. So main staples. This one has to do with the beans, cowpeas, peanuts. We assign this to as legumes. Then This has to do with the milk products such as milk, cheese, etc. We assign it just either milk or dairy products. So let me just go with dairy products. Then this one, this other question has to do with meat, fish, and eggs. So I'll assign it as meat, fish, right? Then the next one has to do with vegetables such as spinach, tomatoes, onions, okra, leaves, etc. We had assigned it as vegetables, so that's how I'm assigning it. So it's vegetables. So allow me to just quickly maybe, yes, this is nice, so that I can have it there and also have this concurrently. Okay, let me just close this. So there I am. So the next one was how many days? Let me just, okay, very good, that's better. This one talks about fruits such as oranges, mangoes, passion fruits, and guavas. With this one falls under fruits, so we are going to assign it to the food group, fruit. Then the next one talks about fats such as margarine, butter, and vegetable oil. Within our this table, we assign it to under oil, fats, and butter. So that is oil. So I'm going to put oil it there. Then this one talks about sugar or sweets such as honey, candies, cakes, etc. Here we assign it to sugar food group. So we have this one that talks about condiments such as tea and coffee, etc. This one falls under the condiments food group, so we just call it condiments like that. Now I now have my 9 food groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the next thing that I need to do is to convert this into a table. And the reason why we say that we convert it into a table is because when you are doing your functions and formulas within it's easier to analyze your data when it has been formatted as a table. Currently it has just been formatted as an array. So how do we do it? We still select everything, then you go to insert menu and select table. So we just come here. We do not want a pivot and this, we just want a normal table. Then we just tell it that our table has headers. So click OK. Yes, some headers and row values has more than 255 characters and will be truncated. I'll just say yes. Now the reason why it has shown that in my previous video I have talked about analyzing data and also preparing your data for analysis. So you can still watch it and know how we handle this and the reason why we do this. The reason is, one of the most common reasons is that many statistical packages don't work with very long field names or column titles. So you have to give it a definitive short name or variable name that you can understand. So I'm going to navigate to EG. So there it is. Good. So I'm going to do my calculations. So I'm going to create a new column here, right? Then under here, I'll just call it like that. So what are the steps? So far we've seen how to prepare all this data. Now the first step, right? We've assigned all these questions into groups, into food groups. So the next thing is to sum all the consumption frequencies of food items of the same food group and record the value of each group above 7 as 7. Now, if you look at our data set, is pretty much straightforward. So we do not have other questions that talks about, we do not have maybe multiple questions for one food group, right? So we do not need to sum it. Now, let me just quickly now, like for example, if you look at this data set, they have asked more than one question for each food group. Like here we have times consumed maize and sorghum for the last 7 days. Then still under the same, they've asked about consumed, how many times did they consume wheat products. Now, okay, let me see if there's another one within the same food group. This is still rice. Now, if you look, all these are staples. Now, if you end up with this kind of data, then after you've assigned it like that, you need to come and sum all these into one, right? So let me see. Still pasta. Okay, there are many. Good. White roots and tubers. So, so the first thing will be to do what? To come here and create your 9 food groups. So for a case like here, we have all this. Then after you've done that, you come and sum. You come and sum here, like you can see here. I have written a function here. Sum times consumed maize sorghum in the last 7 days, times consumed wheat products and all that, so that you end up with such a value, right? So let me just quickly do it. Let me just remove clear. So just call it main staples. So you come and write a function sum. Then we sum all the columns that have questions to do with main staples. So I'll come here and say I want this. I put a comma. I navigate to the next question. This, I put a comma. Navigate to the next question. That is this. Times consumed rice 7 days. Put a comma. I come to this. That is consumed pasta for the last 7 days. Put a comma. Also come to this. That is roots and tubers. Right? I think that is the last one. After I've done that, I hit enter. Now, the beauty about tables is after you've just finished doing the first formula of function, is going to autofill the formula to the rest of the rows. So that is why we usually say that it is easier to analyze data that has been formatted as a table. Now, the next item that we need to know is after we've summed up that, any value that will be above 7, we are going to assign it as 7. So how do we do this? Now, if you look here, we have a value that is 8, 12, and all that. Now, what we need to do is to come here and create a lookup table or a lookup array. And for this lookup array, I'm going to do, let me just insert, yes, 0 will be formatted as 0. So I'll just have it there. Good. Now, so I'll come back to my draft here, under here main staples 2, and write a VLOOKUP function. So it's here. Then I'll pick what are we comparing? We are comparing this. Then I'm going to do a comma. Then I'll navigate to where my array is. So it's here. So I'll just select it the way it is. Then I'm going to press F4. What F4 will do, notice it has converted this from a regular cell referencing to an absolute cell referencing. Then I'm going to tell it should look for values within this, the main staples, and match it with whatever I have in this particular array, and return the second column. So that is the second column I'm going to say 2. Then I'm going to put a comma. If it doesn't find anything, it should run it again from the beginning. So that is true, that is 1. So then I'm going to end it like that and hit enter. So notice that anything that has a value over 7 has been assigned 7 here. Anything that is below 7 has been assigned its prerequisite value, right? So 5 with 5, 8 is assigned to 7, 12 assigned to 7, 4 is just 4, 7 is just 7, and all that. So the same, you can do the same for pulses and all that. So, but if you look at our data is pretty much formatted properly. So we do not need to do all this. So this is one of the things that you need. Your data set will vary from time to time, right? So it's important for us to understand what to do. Now, I have my values here. There's no value that is above 7. So I'll just have it like that. So the next item or the next step that we need to do is to now multiply the value obtained for each food group by its weight and create a new weighted food group score. So for each of these, we have to multiply by their definitive scores. Then after we've done, we multiply this by their definitive scores, legumes by definitive score, and all that up to condiments. Then whatever values we get, we sum it up. So it's much easier in Excel. So you can just still call the sum function. And under here, I'll pick this main staples and multiply it by its definitive score. So let me just, good. So yes, these are our scores. For main staples, the weight is 2, so I'm going to multiply here by 2. Then I'll do a comma, come to legumes, I'll multiply it by legumes is 3, so the weight is 3, so I'll multiply by 3, comma, pick dairy products. Dairy products is a weight of 4, so the weight of dairy products, that's milk, that should be 4, so multiply by 4, comma, come to meat, fish. Meat fish still has a weight of 4, so multiply it by 4. Come to vegetables. Okay. Vegetables, multiply it by vegetables is a value of 1, so I'll multiply by 1, comma. So let me just move this so that I'm able to view the others. I come to fruits. Fruits has a weight of 1, so multiply by 1. Then I have oil. Oil has a weight of 0.5, so I multiply it by 0.5, comma, come to sugar. Sugar is also 0.5, so multiply it by 0.5. Then condiments. Condiments multiply by 0. So multiply by 0. So condiments, you can either multiply by 0 or just leave it out entirely, especially when you're calculating this weighted scores. So after that, you just hit enter, and you can see now here it has calculated the various scores here. So we have 54 and all that up to the last one. Right, good. Now the next thing that we need to do after we've done this, using the threshold, the appropriate threshold, we need to record this to record the food consumption score from a continuous variable to a categorical variable to calculate the percentage of households of poor, borderline, and acceptable food consumption. So this still according to the UN, not the UN, the WHO and FAO. So and what are the thresholds? Now, the consumption threshold is the food consumption, the weighted score. If it's between 1 to 28, then we assign poor. If it's from 28.1 to 42, then we assign it borderline. Then anything above 42 is defined as acceptable. Now, under description, you can see that we have an expected consumption of staple 7 days, vegetable 5 to 6 days, and all this. Now, these are description based on what is usually known. Now, once you are doing this, you're going to end up, the maximum expected value is usually a 112. That is if they are eating 7 days of each of these particular food groups. So to assign this, to record this from a continuous variable to a categorical variable, I'll just insert something here, not this. I'll come here and insert here. So I'll just say let's call it food. Let me just call it food. Let me just FCS category, right? That will make a lot of sense here. Now, the easiest way of reassigning this is to also come here and create an array. So I'm going to create an array from should be the lower limits. So I have 1 to 28, 28.1 to that should be 42, right? Okay, it's formatting it as a date. I do not want that. So I'll just say let me just pick it from 0. All right, that should be 28. Good. Then above above 42, we can still say 42 plus. Like that. Now for this, we assign what? This one should be poor. This one should be borderline. Then above 42 should be acceptable. Like that. Now, when we are doing our lookup, we are not going to assign this. So I'm going just to say, I'm going to put it somewhere here and say that for poor, I'm going to assign the lower limits. So I'll just say 0, going to be poor. Then this one, because okay, it's misbehaving. Just assign 0. Good. So then this one, because the lower limit should be 28, so I'll have it at 28. Then this one should be at 42. Like that. So I'll come to my end line. I'm going to also use a VLOOKUP. So I want to use this. So I'll pick this, comma, come to my array, VLOOKUP array, select the entire like that, then press F4, then comma, then which column should it return? I need it to return poor, borderline, and acceptable. So it's the second column. So I put 2 here. Then it should repeat that until there's nothing else to do. So I'm going to put it to true, and true you use 1. So I'll use 1. So then I'll hit enter. So notice that it has now reclassified this continuous data into categorical data. So there we have it. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how we statistically calculate the food consumption score at household levels. Now, if I wanted to find it, the average for maybe we wanted to aggregate it to administrative levels, then what we'll do is to insert a pivot table, but this time we'll just calculate it using the weighted food scores. So I'll just come select everything like that, come to insert, select pivot table, can have it in a new workbook like that. So if I wanted to do it by, let me see, I have county and I have Payam. So let me go with the Payam. So I'll have it Payam there. So I have Ariat, Ayat, Gumjwer, Gumjwer Center, Gumjwer East, and Malwal East. Then I'll look for my, let me just type it here. Okay, have here. So I'll just pick this and have it under values. Then I'll change the field value settings to average. So I'll have it as average, then click on OK. Right, so there I have this. So I have 34, 23, 22, 28, and 30. I can still compute the scores. So I can say use VLOOKUP and have it like that. Come to my sheet here, pick this, hit F4, 2 and 1, close the bracket, hit enter. So okay, it didn't pick it properly, so can have it like that and say this. Okay, then I hit enter. Okay, an easier way to do it is just to cancel this. I can just copy this data, escape, just copy it like that, Control C, maybe have it somewhere here, just as data. This can be Payam, weighted score. Let me just call it score. Then I can have it here. I'll still use my VLOOKUP. Pick it like that, comma, come to sheet, use that, press F4, 2 and 1, enter. So there it is. Now because this one is not in a table, I can just double click on this plus arrow, this plus sign, like that. So you can see that it's borderline. It's borderline. Most of these Payams are under borderline, so only 2 are poor. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching, and let's meet in my next training video, where we'll be talking about how to also do the same with the household hunger scale and the coping strategy index. If you liked this video, please support the instructor, and also know that the instructor is looking for a better job. Thank you.